So in this video, we're going to talk about home prices and really break down what's happening with home prices nationally. I do have a Riverside County market report video. You can get a more detailed report on our local market as well. This is worthwhile because of all the noise you are hearing from the news media. If you turn on the news or you read an article, there's so many opinions, so many things being said about home prices. What's going to happen next year? What's happening right now, and the one thing I would say is don't ever trust the headlines without context. And I want to give you some in this video as we go through the details and actual numbers. This is not my opinion on what's going on, like you might get from your neighbor or even another agent. So let's get started on this. I want to give you a little bit more context before we hop into so many things being said right now about home prices. I want to give you the annual look at home prices, the month-over-month look at home prices. Typically, when people talk about home price appreciation, they speak to it in an annual way. But when we get in a market like this, we start talking about it on a monthly basis. And so let's be educated on both of those topics. I want to give you some good graphics, and you'll see them throughout the video so that you can visually see and compare as you hear things that are printed or in the news about home prices. This will help you be more knowledgeable and help folks understand what's going on and make the best decision for themselves. So we're going to talk about home prices, really give you the context of what the experts are saying and the numbers behind everything right now. So we start off with this quote right here from FHFA. The rate of U.S. home price growth has substantially decelerated. This deceleration is widespread, with about 1/3 of all the states and metropolitan statistical areas registering annual growth rate below 10%. So they're saying states and then metropolitan statistical areas. Always like to think of that like a radio station coverage. It's not just a town, but maybe an area, 1/3 of those states registering annual growth rate below 10%. You know, if you think about it, it means 2/3 are above 10%. Even 10% home price appreciation is still very good. But no doubt, we're in a time period where we have been for several months of deceleration. Less appreciation is what that means. Less movement in the market, all due to the rise in interest rates. We've talked about that extensively on previous videos, but if we look at September, the most recent numbers that are published, this comes out from FHFA and CoreLogic and Case-Shiller, 11.4, 10.6% appreciation in this country. In our area, as a comparison, it's been about 9%. Now, I know you think, gosh, September's in the rearview mirror, and it is, but it is the most recent data that was published at the end of November. Relative to home price appreciation, on an annual basis, less appreciation than what we've seen over the last couple of years. We've talked about that being an abnormally in the real estate business, all the appreciation. We've seen appreciation, and this is what it looks like graphically. This is from CoreLogic going over all the way back to January of last year, showing the rise up in residential home appreciation and now this deceleration. And what I always like to remind people is the historical average for home price appreciation in this country is 3.8%. So 9%, 10%, that's still pretty good. You see the orange bar on the left and sort of line that I've driven here, heading back in a line with some calling for depreciation this year. Some calling for marginal appreciation going into 2023. And I'll give you a little teaser. My next video is going to bring all the forecasts for the 2023 market. This is one you don't want to miss, so subscribe so you get noticed on when I publish it. You want to understand those forecasts as people are talking about the market as you go into the holiday season. We'll all be sitting down with people having conversations, and you'll be able to say, okay, this is what is projected going into 2023. But you know, the market peaked in the spring of this year, and then sort of, ever since April, deceleration, less appreciation annualized. But like I said before, it's in these types of markets where we want to start to talk about appreciation on a monthly basis. So let's start to look at month-over-month appreciation. Let's look at month-over-month, and the question that I would sort of put out there is, have home values hit bottom of the market? If we start out with January, this data comes from Black Knight. This shows month-over-month appreciation or depreciation in the real estate market. So January, February, March, April, we're seeing through June appreciation in the market, and then this slight dip month-over-month in July, August, and September. Now, we'll see what comes out for October, and the November watch that, but each month since July, we've seen a little bit less depreciation month over month in residential real estate. The markets are getting slightly better. But that's the question we want to start to look at, is what's happening right now across the country. And I think that's going to be no doubt different depending on the area of the country or the city that you're in. Mark Fleming says it's best, or when he says home price appreciation has slowed in all 50 markets that we track, but the deceleration is generally more dramatic in areas that experienced the strongest peak with appreciation rate. So the areas that appreciation had the strongest run-up in prices are starting to see more pronounced decreases in pricing right now. But if we look at this from a month-over-month basis, and I'm going to kind of give you the Case-Shiller look here real quick, and the most recent numbers as of September seeing negative depreciation across all markets. Now, slight depreciation. Some of these markets I've highlighted in red. You'll see it on the chart where it's over 2% in Dallas, Denver, Las Vegas, some West Coast markets like Phoenix, San Diego, San Francisco, and Seattle. But no doubt seeing that now, here's what becomes interesting. If we look at home price movement in the last 2 months in some of the hardest hit markets, and I'll show you those here, San Diego, San Francisco, Seattle, West Coast markets where they were last month, and what's been most recently published this month in each of those markets, we see less depreciation. So I'll take San Diego, for example. It's the closest market to us that they're looking at. The month prior was negative 2.8%. This month, 2.1%. Although slight, but less, you see that trend in each market, which is very interesting. Certainly not ready to call that, but something that we want to pay attention to as we watch home price movement across the country month over month. I think that we're no doubt in a volatile market. We've seen a little bit of relief and interest rates drop slightly. We had some good news maybe coming out about inflation until the jobs report came out last Friday. A little bit better jobs report than I'm sure the Fed would have liked to have seen, but the average 30-year fixed rate is now 6.49, just below 6.5 according to Freddie Mac. But no doubt, we're in a volatile market. We'll see what happens going forward. I think it's too early to say that we're out of the woods yet by any stretch of the imagination. But Craig Lazar from the S&P said this: as the Federal Reserve continues to move interest rates higher, mortgage financing continues to become more expensive and the housing becomes less affordable. Given the continued prospects for a challenging microeconomic environment, home prices may well continue to weaken. We don't know. So what he's talking about there is all of this about inflation. We've been talking about that, and what the Fed is doing is raising the Fed funds rate to combat inflation. Now, going into December, they'll meet again. The likelihood is they're going to raise rates, and they've already met, and they did bump it 0.5 point. So there's nobody saying right now they're not going to raise rates continually. The question is by how much at this point, and I think the larger rate increase could have been signaled by the jobs report on Friday, but we'll have to wait and see what's happening there. But no doubt that is going to influence mortgage rates as we go through the month of December. It's going to cause panic. It's going to cause uncertainty. It's going to cause people to say, okay, what's going to happen as we go into the new year? And I want to give you a little perspective right now. We've always covered the forecast for home prices, and you know, anybody that's calling for depreciation to appreciation across the ones that we track. But if you were to start to put it into perspective, if prices were to drop by a certain amount, and I want to give you this because it's very interesting, if prices were to drop, say, by 5% nationally, that takes us back to February of this year. 10% would take us back to October of last year, and you can see the rest down to 25% of October 2020. Nobody's calling for that, but just to give you perspective on home price appreciation, I think this is something that we need to be aware of, and you know, even those that have bought homes in the last couple of years are wondering, okay, did I make a wise decision? You know, in how well I am staying in touch with them and educating them on the market. Not just those that are thinking about buying, but those that have bought already. Critically important, I'll give you one last slide before I wrap up here. Home price appreciation pre and post pandemic, depending on the city that you're in. This is a great perspective on home prices, where we're at right now, to show you, hey, here's what the run-up looked like during the pandemic. Here's what it looked like prior to that, from 2017 to 2020 to the start of the pandemic. Just to give you a little bit of that perspective and give those that are thinking about buying or selling that perspective as well. Like I mentioned, our next video will be bringing all of the 2023 forecasts for prices for homes sold, for all the things that you want to know. So don't miss that. It's going to be important video, and you're going to want to take a look at it. So again, hit the subscribe button. It'll get posted in a week or so. So the bottom line is, with prices, everything that we're talking about, there's a fast-moving market. Keeping our clients educated on this is our job. And I hope this information has been helpful. And if you have any questions about the real estate market, please feel free to reach out to me. Again, this is Tom Olszewski with Team Olszewski signing out. And remember, it's important who you work with.